Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Good evening to you all. I hope all of you are doing fine. Alhamdulillah. Today we will finalize our final tutorial for Accounting Information System 1 in Gambia University of the Gambia. Okay, I'm your tutor, Ibrahim Jede. Okay, today we'll be discussing about the final examination paper that was conducted last semester in academic year 2022 to 2023. Okay, we will try to go over it and try to solve the question. The questions are very important, and if you understand the question, I believe that you will be able to make in your upcoming exam. Okay, just to briefly explain what we have in here. Okay, the question says the following relational database keep track of customer transactions. So basically, just on this question, we will know that the data that we are dealing with is what a relational database. And we say when you talk about relational database, okay, we are talking about one or more tables, okay, that are joined together with the use of what the primary key and the foreign key to create our relationship. So relational database basically is talking about two or more tables. That is the minimum. Two or more tables, not one table. One table is just a single database. But relational database is two or more tables, okay? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and upwards, okay? Now, when you look at here, we have customer and then we have product. So this customer is our customer table and product is our product table. So we have what? Two tables here. So in now this relational database, we are dealing with two tables, okay? Your tables are the one outside here. You can see them. And when you look at under the customer table, we have the first column or attribute, the same as the column, is the customer ID. And then we say this customer ID is what? The primary key of this customer table, is the unique identification of this customer. We say each table must have a what? A primary key, a unique identification, a unique identifier. So in this customer table, customer ID is the unique identification. Because of why? We say the customers, to identify each of the customer, you have to set a primary key. Okay. For example, if you use first name as the primary key, what do you think will happen? There will be a duplications of names. For example, you can have a customer whose name is what? Lamin. Okay, we can have another customer whose name is Lamin. So if we make this first name as the primary key, it violates what? The rules of what? The primary key, because we say the primary key must be unique identification. It should not be what? Duplicated. Okay, so therefore this cannot be a primary key. For last name also cannot be primary key, gender cannot be, address, telephone, and photo. So to differentiate each of the customer, we use what? Customer ID as the primary key. And when you look at the primary key, we say the primary key cannot be what? Duplicated. That is one of the condition of the primary key, the characteristic of the primary key. And secondly, we say what? The primary key cannot be a null value, meaning what? It cannot be what? Is zero value. Okay. And third condition is that the primary key must be unique. Okay, it must be unique in each table. So basically, these are the condition of the primary key. Okay. Now, when you look at the first name, it's talking about the name of the customer. Okay, the name of the customer. For example, Lamin, Mustafa, Ibrahim. When you talk about last name, we talk about the surname of the customer. Okay. When you talk about gender, we are talking about what? Whether the customer is male or a female. And when you talk about address, we are talking about what? The address, the location of the customer, where the customer is what? Residing. When you talk about telephone, we are talking about the phone of the phone number of the customer, how we can get reach to the customer. That is the telephone number. And when you talk about photo, we are simply referring to what? The picture of the customer, in which we can identify what? Our customers. So basically those are the attributes or columns under the customer table. And when you look at the product table, we have product ID here. So this product ID is the unique identification of the product. Okay. Again, all the product must have a unique identification. Okay. Because of why? We can, okay, particular business can be manufacturing what? They can be manufacturing or this mobile phone, okay, like Samsung. This is Samsung A20. So this Samsung A20, they can be manufacturing thousands of these Samsung, but you will see that they are all A20, A20. That doesn't mean that they don't have difference. Their difference is the what product ID. This product ID must be unique in order to differentiate. So most of the time is their serial number. Okay. Now, when you look at the second column here, you can see customer ID here, which is very strange. Okay, because we have customer ID under the customer table. Why is this customer ID doing in the product table? This customer ID is doing, the reason why is in this product table because of what it is here to form a relationship between these two tables, which is a relational database cannot be a relational database without what, the link of what, without the combination of the primary key and the foreign key. Okay, there must be a primary key and a foreign key to create a relationship. So in order to create a relationship between customer table and product table, we must have a foreign key. Because of why it is called a foreign key, because the original table is what customer, not product table. The original ID of the product is the product ID, but this custom is a foreigner here. That's why we call it as what, a foreign key. Okay. Now when you look at the PDT name here, this is talking about the product name, the name of the product. Okay, the type of the product. Okay, and also, for example, product name can be, if at all we are doing mobile phone, we can say is what is Samsung. That is the name of the product. The type can be what, A20, Samsung A20. The quantity means what, the amount in which the customer bought, purchase. For example, like a quantity, the customer can buy 10 mobile phones, can be what, the quantity can be 10. The price is talking about what, the price of each of the mobile phone. The amount is the combination of what, quantity times price. That is the price times quantity. Transaction date is talking about what, the date in which a transaction or an activity occurs. Okay, in day in which the customer bought the product, or a date in which the product is in inventory. When we talk about availability, we are talking about where the customer the product is available or not. If the product is available in the store, we can say is what, yes, availability is yes. And if it is not available in the store, we can say is what, no. Okay, so simply this is just an explanation about our customer and our product table and their attributes. So let's look at the sorry about that. Let's look at the following question. We'll be using our Word document to answer the following question. Okay, so the first question says how many customers are there in the database? How many customers are there in the database? And then before that, to simplify, I will try to write these tables in our Word document. Okay, in our Word document. So we can write here solutions. Okay, so we will have here let me write, we have customer. Okay, and the first column is what, customer ID. We have customer ID, we have the first name, we have the first name, we have the last name, we have the gender, we have the address, we have the address, we have the telephone, we have photo. Okay, simply this is the column of the customer, and then we have the column of the product. Okay, the first column is what, the product ID. You have to be very careful when you are writing your columns or your tables, sorry, your columns or your attributes in answering the SQL questions. You can see the way it is given in the question, you have to write it in the same format. Okay, PDT. Okay, you have the type, you have the quantity, you have the price, you have the amount, transaction date, you have availability. empty. All right, so basically these are your two tables. Okay, you can see them. Okay, these are your two tables. We have the customer ID, we have the first name, last name, gender, address, telephone, and photo. Product ID, customer ID, product name, type, quantity, price, amount, customer transaction date, and then we have what availability. Okay, basically these are your two tables that we have. Okay, now we're going to start with the first table. Question number one. Question number one says, let's look at question number one. It says, how many customers are there in the database? So basically, they want us to identify how many customers do we have in this database. How many? Be careful here. It says what? How many? So now, as I normally do, in order to help you to diagnose or to reduce the quantity of information in your question, I simply do something like this. Okay, I create something here like a small data here, say table, and I say what column, I say what row. Okay, simply to help you understand the question. Okay, first of all, let's try to identify how many tables do we have in this question. Since we are dealing with two tables product, so you will see that sometimes an information will be given to you in the questions whilst we are dealing with relational database, that is two tables, but those particular information will not be talking about what the secondary table. It will be only talking about the first table or what the other tables, the secondary table. Are we together? So that's why I simply do this in order to help you to understand the question very well. So how many customers are there in the database? Let's identify in this question, how many tables do we think is in this question? How many customers? When I talk about table, I'm talking about what is, do we have a customer table in this question, or do we have a product table, or do we have combination of both in the question? Okay, so how many customers are there in the database? If we talk about how many customers, so we are talking about customer table. So one, we are setting that we have a table called here called what? Customer, right? Customer, right? So let's see whether we're going to have any information that's related to the product table. Okay, so how many customers are there in the database? So simply we don't have any what relationship or any of the information that is referring to what the product table. Okay, so now we can continue. Now let's identify which column do we need under this customer table. Which column do we need? Okay, how many customers are there in the database? Did they give us any column? They didn't give us any column, right here. But when you talk about how many customers, so if we want to know the total number of your customers, what is the simplest way to identify these customers? Is the use of their what? Primary key. That is the unique identification. So therefore, to know the number of customers you have, simply just calculate what? Just count the number of the primary key of the customers, then you will know how many customers we have. We cannot use the first name and the last name because of why? The first name and the last name can be duplicated. We can have the same customers with the same name and the same last name. So in order to avoid duplication of our customers, okay, we use the primary key. That is the unique identification in which none of the customers are what? Similar. So we're going to use what? The primary key. And since the question says how many, we are going to use a command called what? Count. Select with what? Count. Okay, so let's write the query. So before that, let's identify. We're going to use what? The customer ID. We're going to use the customer ID. And they give, when you talk about row, it's talking about information. Is there any information that is given on this customer ID? Because a row always goes with your column. Okay, they must be what? Match. They must be in the same domain. When we talk about row here, we simply talking about this customer ID. We know that